Hello. We are back on Stage Scheming. The 2025 NFL Draft is less than a week away, and we are back to give you guys a little bit of a fantasy preview from a Chiefs perspective. I wanted to go ahead and hit on where some weapons can be added to help out Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and this Chiefs offense get back to its high-flying ways, and I think that obviously some health will be a big part of it. Obviously, the trenches will as well, but we have some really interesting targets across this class that can go ahead and inject some juice back into this Chiefs attack. So I'm going to have a good time kind of going through this. And to do it, I also invited on a good friend of mine, Manny, who does some great work as far as fan side is concerned on the fantasy community side. Looks at these prospects heavy, obviously, at the major fantasy positions, wide receiver, running back, and tight end. And I'm happy to introduce him here. Happy to have you on, Manny. How you doing?
Hey, appreciate you for having me on again, man. I'm ready. It's under 5 days away. Draft, one of my favorite times of the year. So I think it's a lot of great prospects. A lot of under highlighted prospects too. So it should be a good time.
Absolutely. And so obviously the grind of looking through all of these guys' tape and evaluating the testing and seeing how they'll fit in different places is a lot to say the least. And I would say that Manny is a Commander fan. Obviously, we both are looking for some guys that can help out as far as some secondary weapons are concerned. So it'd be interesting to jump into this. So we're going to start out kind of talking about some of our favorite guys within this class first and foremost, and then get into some Chiefs-specific fits. And then finally going to give you guys a few late-round kind of steals to be on your fantasy radar as well as we go into draft season in that aspect of it. Manny, let's go ahead and get it started. You can lead us off as far as your favorite running back that you fall in love with as far as prospects in the 2025 NFL Draft.
Yeah, so, running back is a position that I've been looking at for a couple months now because as a Commanders fan, that's one aspect that we feel like we're missing. We're feeling like we're missing a home run threat. I love Brian Robinson. He gets in between the tackles and gets you extra yards. You rarely ever see him stuck behind the line. We're just also looking for that home run threat. So, there's a lot of this class is pretty deep. So as far as running back is concerned. But one of my favorites, a running back that I feel like can do everything that you ask for in a running back is Travion Henderson. He's electric. He can get him the ball out of the backfield. He's great at creating space when it's not there. There's also concerns about his vision, his ability to find the holes and hit it right away. But when you're able to create holes and just find ways to make plays, that's the name of the game. Because you're not always going to have the gaps. You're not always going to have perfect running lanes. So whenever you're able to create out of chaos, that's a value. But not only that, but his ability to block and pass protection too. That's going to protect your quarterback. No matter who it is, they're going to need pass protection. That's going to be a running back that you can't really take off the field. So Travion Henderson, one of my favorite running backs this class.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. Travion Henderson, his explosive nature is fun to fall in love with. And certainly as for Chiefs, we've been looking for that type of home run threat, the juice, and specifically the fact that he does have that attention to detail and want to as far as the pass protection aspect of running back play is concerned. I think that is awesome as well. And, he has ability in between the tackles. It's not necessarily he's a bruising guy, but he can make guys miss in space, understands because he runs with really good vision to be able to get himself into advantageous positions to then create chunk yardage off of it. So not mad at you as far as Travion Henderson is concerned. I will say my personal favorite as far as this class would be RJ Harvey out of UCF. I think that he's a little bit underrated from the standpoint of the amount of yards he was able to create with the poor blocking that they had on a consistent basis for him, I think was impressive. Not afraid to operate within the tackles, can certainly take advantage of space outside. A really good athlete, wouldn't say top level, but a really good athlete. Has a little want to as far as the pass protection is concerned as well. Soft hands, not going to run a variety of routes, but can do those running back routes that you will ask on a consistent basis really effectively and take advantage of those as well. I think he's really patient as far as the screen game as well. He understands how to allow the blockers to set up perfectly and then take advantage of the lanes that come off of that too. So I fell in love with RJ Harvey early in this class, and then as things continue to go on, he only continued to increase as far as how great of a running back I think that he can be, and certainly would love him as far as Kansas City is concerned. So moving on to this wide receiver class. Obviously, class is always going to be full of different prospects. I think there's a variety of them. Maybe not necessarily a whole lot of elite guys, but I do think that there are some interesting guys that continue to fill out a wide receiver room effectively. Where do you kind of see somebody that stand out to you and somebody that you really love to have enjoyed to watch throughout this process?
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing about the top guys, T Mac, Abuka, Luther Burden, and even Matthew Golden too. He's had an ascension because of his last year. But one guy that he's kind of been, gathering up a lot of noise over the past couple of weeks. Jaden Higgins. I just feel like, there's a lot of size in this class. I think that's something that was more, I see more in this class than last year. But for not just the size, but being able to move as well, you kind of want to have that combination. And not too many folks have that combination, and especially do it at a high level, like Jaden Higgins, for him to be about 6'4", I think about 215, and be able to separate off the line. There's questions about his long distance separation, which, I mean, for 6'4" guys, you're not really looking for that too much. But for his ability to, just get off the line, he can win in man and zone coverage. And one other thing that you want to look at is contested catchability. Like, are you using your size to your ability? Are you fully maximizing your frame? And he's one of the top at that. He's converting almost 60% of his contested catch opportunities, and at a high volume too. That's one of the best in the class. So I feel like he's wherever he's going to end up. He may not end up as a wide receiver 1, but for somebody's team, but as a wide receiver 2 and a reliable target. I think he's also only had 2 drops over the past 130 targets too. Probably 4 drops total in the past 3 years for him. So he has reliable hands. He makes contested catch opportunities. He's not too bad after the catch too. He'll make the first man miss and he'll fight for extra yards. So I think Jaden Higgins is going to get a lot of love wherever he ends up.
Yeah, obviously Iowa State, Jaden Higgins, wide receiver. Iowa State had 2 really good wide receivers as far as that's concerned. And Jaden Higgins, what he provides you as far as his profile is concerned, one of the bigger guys, one of the faster guys as far as this entire class, and obviously it's a sure-handed wide receiver. You have some maybe question marks as far as maybe the route running is concerned, but you do feel like you see the hints and the possible tools to go ahead and develop that as far as that aspect of it. And from day one, he's going to be able to give you size within that wide receiving room, to say the least. It's funny that obviously you did say Jaden Higgins. My personal favorite is his teammate Jalen Noel. He's somebody as far as an explosive nature in this class I really fell in love with. I fell in love early. He played bigger than he actually measured as far as I was concerned. I thought he was maybe around 5'11", maybe even 6 foot. He's obviously a little bit shorter than 5'9", 5'10", but he plays with a low center of gravity, create yards after the catch easily, but he also does have a true ability to route run on a consistent basis. He reminds me a lot of Lad McConkey from last year, where that he is going to be consistent, understand where he needs to go as far as the routes that he's running, create that separation, and then also can do some things after the catch. So I like him a lot. I think he's going to make a team very happy as far as day 2 is concerned and what he can provide from that standpoint. I think he's still been lost a little bit in the shuffle as far as guys like Jaden Higgins. Obviously, we've heard the talk about Trey Harris, a guy that I also really like a lot. Like you mentioned, some of the top guys, certainly other guys, Jalen Royals, as you get into day 2 from that perspective. I think he's maybe even lost in the shuffle a little bit, but certainly Kyle Williams out of Washington State's had a meteoric rise as well. But no, I really do like what Jalen Noel can provide, and I look forward to seeing where he ends up going and what he can bring as far as an explosive element to an offense. So we'll wrap up here as far as the Titans are concerned. Go ahead and hit me with who is your favorite guy to watch.
My favorite guy, obviously, there's 2 really good tight ends in this class. Tyler Warren's been, the top prospect, but, another guy that I feel like could be I feel like he's a better receiving tight end, Colston Loveland. I got there a little bit of his take when I was watching JJ McCarthy last year when I was, trying to get some homework on the potential Commanders QB. So that's when he really first stood out to me. So then I watched him over the last year and took that next step, and you really see his receiving ability come into play. And not only that, but due to his size, he is kind of on the leaner side, but he's a capable blocker. He uses his frame well, and I think coming from that Jim Harbaugh mentality, that's something that was prioritized. So he knows where he has to improve in that, but he's something that he's willing to work on. But he's capable. He's very capable. He's probably one of the better blocking tight ends to match with his receiving ability. I think he's going to, depending on where he ends up, there's a couple good fits for him. I think he'll fit on a couple of teams and that he'll be able to make an impact from day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. I do have Coastal Loveland as my personal tight end one in this class because I do think that he is a better receiving option than Tyler Warren. That's not to say that Warren, can't be a really good tight end in this league. It's just I like the specific skill set that Loveland brings to the table as far as what I'm projecting tight ends to do in the modern game and really have the highest impact possible. As far as this class is concerned, yeah, my tell the truth brother CJ has really fallen in love with Terrence Ferguson. I'm somebody that when I had watched this player on a consistent basis, I really did like him a lot. It was Mason Taylor at LSU. And it was somebody that obviously has continued to creep up draft boards as we get close to the draft. And it sounds like he may even be an early second round player as we get close to it. I think that he is consistent. He is somebody that is going to probably be day one, a starting tight end caliber guy as far as this league is concerned. I truly do believe he has that skill set. And I do think that he has some upside to be able to be a possible top 5 guy. Not necessarily featured as far as the number 1 pass catcher in an offense, but I do think that he certainly can be a solid number 2 and definitely a dangerous number 3, depending on what the weapons are around him. So I'd like Mason Taylor at LSU a lot. You're going to get a consistent guy, and I think you're going to get it from day one as far as that is concerned. So moving on, we're going to take it a little bit to Kansas City specifically as far as the focus is concerned. Obviously, you talked about what the Commanders are looking for as far as the home run threat, what that aspect of it. Current Chiefs running back room features Isaiah Pacheco, obviously coming back from injury, Elijah Mitchell coming over from San Francisco, who also has obviously had an injury history as well, but brings a different element as far as speed, pass protection, as far as that is concerned. Brett Veach highlighted that in his pre-draft press conference. And we also brought back Kareem Hunt, who did really good work as far as short yardage is concerned, and honestly saved a little bit of our season, coming off the couch and giving us some pretty good work in that aspect of it. So obviously you mentioned Travion Henderson already as far as the explosive nature of what his game has brought. Obviously, I talked about RJ Harvey. Give me 2 Chiefs fits as far as this running back room is concerned, and where you think they can really help out and take advantage of the Andy Reid scheme.
Yeah, this, like we talked about earlier, this is a pretty deep running back class. So there's a couple of guys where you might get later on in the draft that can absolutely, contribute from day one, given their roles. So one guy I think he's been kind of rising up the stocks too, especially among, kind of guys that kind of like to find the sleepers, especially for fantasy. Damian Martinez, he has a pretty big fan base. But I like his ability because he has a different type of running ability. Like when he'll stay patient, he'll wait for holes to open up, but it's not like he's dancing too much behind the line of scrimmage. He's probably hesitating for a second just to see which lines are opening up, and he'll attack it without any hesitations. And he also is great after contact. He'll make people miss. I think he had over 45 missed tackles this past season, and I think that's something that obviously Isaiah Pacheco he runs hard. He's an angry runner, but also with Kareem Hunt. So I think that's kind of something that we probably can see that type of element with that offense and Damian Martinez. But also another running back that he didn't really play. I think he appeared in one game this past season. But Jacory from Arizona, I think he's a pretty talented back. I think he had over 1,000 yards last season. He only appeared in one game this season, but I think that's kind of why his name isn't being mentioned as much. But he kind of, as far as fit, I don't think he's as capable as a receiver as some of the other options, like maybe RJ Harvey, Jaden Blue, or even Damian Martinez. But I do think he's, as far as running ability, he can. I guess he could be that Kareem Hunt. So I think that I don't know if you guys will get more than one running back, but I don't know how high you'll spend a pick on a running back. But those are 2 guys I think towards the end of day 2, day 3, you guys can take a stab at there, and I think it'll be great fits.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned obviously Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, and that's somebody that the Chiefs actually brought in for a visit, and maybe ended up liking what they see. But I think to your point, certainly he didn't play that much as far as this past season was concerned due to the injury, and I'm sure that was a big reason why they decided to bring him in. And that was something Brett Veach also talked about as far as why they decided to use those top 30 visits to learn more about those players that maybe they didn't get as much to see as far as tape in that aspect. But to your point, had a really good 2023 at Arizona. He runs, with a little bit of an upright style, but certainly runs with patience and vision that is really impressive. Certainly could use a little bit of work as far as the passing game is concerned. And I think that's a fair question mark. But to your point, he's a little bit more of a later round guy. And I think that it depends on if you wanted to double up and pair him with another guy that's earlier on, then that could make a lot of sense as a 1-2 punch within your room moving forward in that aspect. And obviously Damian Martinez, somebody out of Miami that you had mentioned, I think there is room to add multiple backs. And if you put my Damian Martinez and him together, I think that makes sense. I think Martinez helped out Cam Ward a lot in that Miami offense, more than people would give him some credit for. I like the way that he is able to be agile in and out of cuts. He runs with good vision. And I think he has soft hands as well. So I like both of those fits for the Kansas City Chiefs. Moving on, as far as wide receiver is concerned, obviously this room currently does feature both Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice, who is currently coming back from injury as well. Juju Smith-Schuster, as far as the depth piece is concerned. Where do you stand? I'll ask you this in a second, but obviously there's a lot of talk about, do you get a bigger body because that's one that's missing? Is Andy Reid going to use a bigger body, et cetera, et cetera? As you evaluate what the Chiefs like to do on offense, and then also the guys that they already have in the room, some are wide receivers that you feel like could fit as far as the Chiefs depth chart is concerned.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When you do look at the Chiefs wide receiver room, there's not too many guys over 6 foot. So you think that they would want to add size, but then that's also a great question. Would Andy Reid use that size? So that's kind of why, like when I initially started looking at it, I felt like Trey Harris would have been a great pick. I think his size and his also ability to stretch the field vertically, I think that could be a great piece. But then there's also the question about, how he would use the size. Like if they would want to use him like Juju, I think that Trey Harris probably won't. He does his route ability is not it's not as versatile as Juju's would be in that offense, but I think you can make it work just because of his sheer size, and he's able to come back to the ball. He works well in that regard, and he's able to adjust. I think he does everything that you want out of a larger body receiver. So I think you can, if you're going to make him that Juju role that he did in his last stint, I think that could be a possible option. But then there are not too many bigger receivers that I feel like could fit other than him, and then maybe possibly Jaden Higgins. But I'm not sure if Jaden Higgins would be there after last. Yeah. Because there's another wide receiver that I feel like could use. He doesn't have the size that I feel like is missing from that room, but he's also another capable receiver that I feel fits in that offense just with his natural agility and ability to get open quickly, and just because he's tough for his size. Ty Felton, out of University of Maryland. He's kind of been garnering up a lot of love lately, but he's one of those receivers where I feel like he's twitchy. His hands could use a little bit of work. He's had some concentration drops, but other than that, I feel like he has some capable hands, capable route running ability. His body control is probably one of the better in the class, I feel. So I think that he should be a little bit more talked about, but I think he could fit in that offense and add that extra element as well.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Look, Ty Felton is somebody that I've had to get to a little bit later on in the process over there at Maryland, but I was impressed by, again, that explosive nature that he does bring to it. Obviously he runs a sub 4.4, but gets in and out of cuts very quickly from that aspect. And again, when you talk about going into day 3 as far as a wide receiver a little bit later on, I think that when you talk about adding that aspect to it later on in the draft, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially for this depth chart and what comes to it from that aspect. So I like it. I like where you're coming from as far as Ty Felton, and I do think that he certainly could be a fit, and especially for what Brett Veach also mentioned in the pre-draft press conference of talking about adding explosive playmaking, both at the running back or wide receiver position, but specifically from the aspect of making sure that they can also have that for the return game, which obviously has an increased emphasis put on it due to the new kickoff rules being adjusted. So definitely appreciate that Ty Felton shout out. Like you said, he's getting a little bit more love as we get closer to the draft, and we'll see where he ends up going on day 3. So moving on to tight end, obviously there's a position that is highlighted by Travis Kelce, who appears is going into his last season. Noah Gray has given us solid tight end 2 reps as far as that is concerned. And then we do have Jared Wiley, who we took in the 4th round last year, coming back from his ACL injury, and we'll see how that continues to progress. For you, if you're going to draft a tight end into this room out of this class, who do you think fits the best?
Yeah, so I feel like, tight end is definitely another one of those positions where you probably won't spend too high of a pick on, but you do want to kind of find that value within those, towards the middle of day 2, or I believe you guys have a couple day 2 picks, right?
Yep, 63, 66, and 95.
Right. So I think one of those picks could be spent on the tight end, and one of those tight ends where I feel like could be in that range and would kind of fit that offense is Harold Fanning. So out of Bowling Green. I think that he's kind of a polarizing prospect as far as just because he's not athletic. I'll just say that he's not in that. He didn't test well. He's doesn't really flash on tape, but you do see things on tape that you want out of the tight end. He's, even though he's not athletic, he's making guys miss consistently. After the catch, he uses his size well. He gets open. There's just not really too much that you would want out of a receiving tight end. So I think like Kelce, he wasn't the most athletic as well, but he knew how to use his size, and his first step is one of the better among his size. So I think Harold Fanning he can kind of replicate that, and I think that he will be able to help that offense kind of retain that element that Kelce had with making plays after the catch and kind of using that physicality as a receiving tight end as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's ultimately going to be my biggest question mark as far as Harold Fanning Jr., because you mentioned that he is a parallel prospect or a polarizing prospect as far as this class is concerned. And I will be honest with you, he is not one of my favorite tight ends. I'll say that much. However, when you talk about what he put on tape, it's absolutely the ability to make guys miss after the catch, and certainly the ability, to be an impactful player. It's just really, when you talk about Bowling Green and the middling athleticism, I won't even say that he's a bad athlete for the position, because you look at where his testing scores kind of play out. I mean, he's more of a above average type of athlete for what the testing kind of looks like. But ultimately, you compare him to a guy like Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was a great athlete for the position when he was coming out. So there's that difference. And then can he learn the position? Are you fitting with the scheme? Like, all of those things are all question marks. I don't know if he would be the gamble that I would take, but I certainly see the vision, because if the athleticism then translates, his ability to get the ball in his hands and then create things after the catch, I think he does have really, honestly, some running back skills to him. And a team possibly can use that effectively from that standpoint. And so I think it would be interesting. I think that may be a different scheme, more so like a Miami Dolphins, where they like to get the ball quickly out in space into those guys' hands, which the Chiefs like to do, but they don't necessarily love to do it necessarily with the tight ends in certain aspects of it, which I think makes a little bit more sense. But you saw a lot of the things that they were able to do with John O. Smith last year for the Miami Dolphins. I think that's maybe a place that Harold Fanning Jr. could make some hay as far as that's concerned. If that, at athleticism translates, then he could have himself a really good NFL career, and we'll see where that ends up going. So appreciate you for coming up with some of those Chiefs fits as far as that is concerned. Now, obviously, you do obviously pay attention to the fantasy community heavily. I did want to just ask you, as far as the people that tune into Kingdom Cast, who do you feel like are some of the major, or I should say not the major, but who are some of the completely underrated late round fantasy running back target? It doesn't have to be, a bunch of guys. It could just be one guy that people should keep on their radar. Obviously, we don't know where they're going to go as far as situation. I know that always does determine some of these things, but who's a late round guy that you're going to be keeping your eye on where he ends up landing?
Yeah, as far as running back, one of my favorite guys in this class, I kind of touched on him earlier, Jaden Blue. He didn't have a whole ton of productivity on his profile, but as far as just what you ask for in a running back, he's electric. he's great. As capable as a receiver, I think he's one of the better receivers in this class among running backs. He's going to be a guy that I feel like once you start seeing those reps in preseason and maybe, as it starts off early as a third down back, it's going to be kind of hard to get him off the field. You want to get him more touches. Kind of I don't want to say A-chain, but he'll be on that level where he's explosive. You want to get him the ball. So wherever he ends up, I feel like that's going to be a guy that he's going to make his way on the field and make some noise.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. Obviously, Blue is somebody for Texas that was an explosive element to their offense. It's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up going. It's one of those things where if he lands in the right running scheme, then he can create a whole bunch of, efficient runs and be able to score a lot and be somebody that all of a sudden, takes over our backfield. So it'd be interesting to see where Jadon Blue certainly lands as far as that's concerned. Give me a late round wide receiver target that guys should keep their eye on as far as fantasy.
It's funny that you actually said that Jay Noel was one of your he was your wide receiver early that you picked, because I knew I was going to talk to him about him earlier. And those Iowa State boys, they're underrated as far as where they fall in this class. But I think when you look at the profile, when you look at the film, everything it's all there. Jay Noel's a guy that I feel like he can get open quickly. He's intelligent. He's quarterback friendly. I think he'll adjust to. He'll see what the quarterback. He'll always be looking back at the quarterback and saying, "Hey, look, are they scrambling out? Are they in trouble? Do they need me to kind of flatten my route? Do they need me to sit in the zone?" So I think that's something that's going to be hard to, like Jayden Blue, hard to take him off the field. He's going to kind of develop that rapport with whatever quarterback he's going to play with soon. And also as a returner as well, because especially with the new kickoff rule. So depending on how your fantasy leagues scores that, I think that could be an extra asset as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Noel. I hope that he lands in a really fun place. I think that he's somebody that's probably going to end up continuing to be underrated as we get into fantasy draft season. Somebody that I'm going to be targeting a lot of my dynasty specific drafts. And I'll be poking around as far as maybe the waiver wire after some early season drops as far as that is concerned. Finally, this is not necessarily a deep tight end class, but there are a few guys here and there that may catch some attention. Who is a late round tight end target that people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, like you said, there's a couple names where I feel like depending on where they end up, they could not end up. They could be more on the higher rated side. Like if Mason Taylor, he was kind of on the lower end. He was kind of a projected late day two pick, and now he's kind of getting into early day two talk. So depending on his landing spot, I think that's going to be one of the more coveted tight ends now. But one really deep late guy, I feel like he could possibly end up being undrafted, but I feel like he could also end up maybe a fifth round pick. Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. I feel like he's kind of what you would want out of a late round tight end. His ability to block when needed, but be capable as a receiver. Make plays when you have the ball in your hands. Be a red zone threat. I think that he's shown that as in the few spurts and opportunities that he's had. But I feel like he's also still developing. His floor is pretty, I'll say it's as a tight end 2. If he gets depending on where he ends up. So that's also another thing, the situation. But if he ends up in a place where he could potentially rise to be another tight end 2, I think he could possibly, make some noise there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Look, I'm glad that you're into mentioning him. Obviously, Texas Tech has a soft. I would say Texas Chiefs Kingdom has a soft spot in its heart for Texas Tech, obviously for the Patrick Mahomes. But Conyers is somebody that has gotten a lot of talk kind of recently because of his athleticism. We saw the testing be really good. Not a lot of experience, but does have some of the flashes that could be interesting as far as a team trying to develop him. And look, if he slips to a place that could be UDFA, I'm sure the Mahomes will be banging the table to try and bring him in. And I would not mind it as far as that is concerned. If you're talking about a 7th or UDFA type of selection, I think that he could be worthwhile to bring into camp and see what he can have to give you and develop here in Kansas City. So all that being said, Manny, thank you so much for coming by, talking a little bit of obviously fantasy aspect of these weapons within the 2025 draft NFL prospects. Thank you for giving us a little bit of aspect for the Chiefs perspective. Anything before we go ahead and get out of here?
Oh no, man! I'm just ready for the draft, man. It's a long time coming. I feel like the next 5 days are going to be the longest 5 days of our lives, but it's going to be here, so I can't wait.
I completely get it, man. Thank you once again for coming on. Everybody, please stay tuned. Obviously, to hear Tell the Truth, going to be here Tuesday night, getting you ready for the draft. And then obviously we'll be having our draft stream both Thursday night and Friday, taking you through all of those picks and giving you our live reactions in addition to what the Chiefs end up doing on those nights. So once again, thank Manny for joining me. And this is your final stay scheming. Peace out. Go Chiefs, man.